Thank you, Anthony, and thank you for the invitation to speak this morning. I must say I'm honored and privileged to be on stage with Irvine and with Raphael. Thank you. 30 St. Mary Axe, or as it's more affectionately known, the Gherkin, is arguably the most iconic tall building in London and has become one of the dominant symbols of this modern and progressive city. Not constrained by its physical structure and its specific address, the building and its name has a life beyond the parameters of its physicality and is known the world over. It symbolizes London, confidence, the financial heart of the city, our progressive nature, our aspirations, and success. Across the city and the country, and even around the world, the building, its outline, and its name is used by global corporations, all manner of businesses, movie makers, news agencies, television channels, individuals, and the city itself, and even our government, to symbolize these traits and to create their own alignment with them. In a world where fantasy and reality merge on TV, in ads, and on film, the building has been embraced into a plethora of marketing campaigns and has all but supplanted the Routemaster bus and Big Ben as shorthand for London. There are many who believe that this is the building that changed major public opinion on the appropriateness of tall buildings and spurred a tower building boom in London. Today, I'd like to give you some insight into what motivated us to purchase the building, what the building's plans are for the future, and on some of the benefits and challenges of owning and managing such an icon, including its relationship with the public and intellectual property. But first, let's remind ourselves what a stunning building the Gherkin really is. To really understand quite how special the building is, it's important to understand exactly where it is and how it came into being. The location, as you know, sits in the heart of the City of London, and over centuries of mercantile development later became the site of the Baltic Exchange. Following the Big Bang in the late 1980s and the rush of development in the City of London that followed the deregulation of the financial services sector, the site became increasingly prominent. But just as the deregulation of the financial services sector was an explosive force that changed the City of London, it was an altogether more sinister explosion that was to be the catalyst for the redevelopment of 30 St. Mary Axe. On 10 April 1992, the Provisional IRA detonated a massive bomb quite close to the exchange, causing loss of life and also extensive damage to the historic building and neighbouring structures. English Heritage and the City of London Corporation were keen that any redevelopment must restore the building's old facade onto St. Mary Axe. After English Heritage later discovered that the damage was far more severe than previously thought, they stopped insisting on full restoration. Then came plans for a Millennium Tower, a an 86-metre Leviathan. But those plans were dropped after it was said that it was totally out of scale and proportion to the city and the potential of the tower to disrupt flight paths for City and Heathrow Airport. And so it fell to Norman Foster and his practice, Foster and Partners, to design a building not only fit for such a prominent site, but also for tenants in the form of global reinsurance firm Swiss Re. London's first sustainably focused tall building and an instantly recognizable addition to the city's skyline, the headquarters for Swiss Re was to be rooted in a radical approach, technically, architecturally, socially, and spatially. We have a shot here of the building being built and the very well-known double triangle or diamond shape of the glass. And although we know that the building is curved, every pane of glass in that building, except for one, being the dome right on the top, is actually flat. Anthony mentioned previously that there's going to be some questions on tall buildings. Well, I have some trivia. There are 7,429 panes of glass in the building. Irvine said that the glass on the Shard covers 8 football fields. The glass on the Gherkin covers 5. As Lord Foster said at the time, the building is part of a wider evolution toward more interesting forms of buildings around the world and here, wonderfully, in London. It was one of the tallest buildings ever to be built in London and the second in the city. On completion, it attracted unparalleled praise, with commentators praising its form as a work of art. Jonathan Jones from The Guardian wrote in October 2004, "It is modern and ancient. It is a site-specific building. It sculpts the sky. It is a monument and a mirror. It makes you see London in a new way. It does things that artists do, that people who are officially called artists have given up even trying to do." Strong words. The building of the Gherkin was not only a show of confidence in design and the strength of the value in the City of London's built environment. For its tenant Swiss Re, it was a global demonstration of confidence, not only in itself, but in London. John Coombe of the BBC News said in August 2000, "This headquarters building is evidence of Swiss Re's long-term commitment to London and confidence in its future as a leading financial centre." As many of you know, originally Swiss Re was going to occupy the whole of the building, a symbol of its position in London's insurance market and overshadowing the nearby Lloyd's building. Then came September 11, and the insurance world changed. That brought challenges of having to fill the rest of the building, but also opportunity to diversify its appeal. Peter Rees spoke yesterday, the City of London chief planner, and he commented, "People looked at the Gherkin and assumed if you build a wacky shape, that would help you let it. That was not true," he said, "because you can't design something to become an icon." And he was right. Something that looks great on blueprints doesn't always look great when it's actually built. Also, becoming an icon is a relative concept, as icons don't exist in singular isolation. Furthermore, for an inanimate object to achieve iconic status, it needs to be more than just aesthetically pleasing. It needs to be revered and embraced, not only by those who use it every day, but by those who simply recognize how far-reaching its positive attributes are. The Gherkin has become an icon of 21st century Britain, an international shorthand for London. Since its completion, it has won a number of prestigious awards for architecture. In 2004, the building was awarded the Royal Institute of British Architects Sterling Prize. For the first time in the prize's history, the judges reached a unanimous decision. Indeed, it was a combination of the building's strong design credentials, its obvious occupier appeal, and the affinity with which the building was embraced, not only locally, but internationally, that drew us towards investing in it. Prior to acquiring the building in 2006 and since the formation of our company in 1993, we had already advised on approximately 30 billion of transactions on both behalf of private investors and also international corporate clients. In 2004, our focus shifted towards commercial property. And between that time and 2006, we invested almost £3 billion in the UK and in Europe on commercial buildings. We had already acquired several properties in the City of London, two of which are pictured here, 33 Old Broad Street and 250 Bishopsgate, now RBS's head office. That was before we acquired the building in 2006 in a 50-50 joint venture with IVG. When Swiss Re brought the building to market in 2006, we felt that its location, iconic status, its multi-let nature, which was underpinned by 50% of it being let for 25 years to Swiss Re, gave it a super prime quality, which would stand it in good stead as a long-term investment in the city. It was exactly the type of high-quality real estate asset that we and our co-investors were looking to invest in, and it was therefore a logical choice. I like this shot of the city and the Gherkin, the enduring theme of the river running through the city, the historic Tower Bridge and the St. Paul's in the background, juxtaposed with the modern and the Gherkin there at the side. One of the enduring appeals of the Gherkin is that it manages to combine style with substance. After all, it would be no use investing in a cutting-edge building if it was not going to be commercially viable for us and our co-investors. A strong address combined with even stronger design credentials, plus long leases secured with the incumbent tenants, have ensured the long-term commercial viability of this asset. We have consistently achieved some of the highest rents in the city, achieving peak rents of £67.50 per square foot at the peak of the last cycle, and already achieving rents in this cycle of £64.50. One of the problems we have in achieving high rents, though, is that we don't have much space to let. But for any asset worth investing in, there needs to be ways to work the asset and to add value. The acquisition of this new London landmark, its prominent position and increasing worldwide recognition, was also key to us boosting our profile and subsequently created many opportunities for us. I know about 60% of the audience are from outside the UK. And you may not have heard of Evans Randall, but if I tell you when we meet that we own the Gherkin, instantly some of that brand rubs off. You know the sorts of things we're interested in, the substance, the size, the quality. And that's the same for tenants in the building. When they say, we're in the Gherkin, instantly we have an image formed in our mind of what sort of business they may be. It's the importance of the brand. However, as you'd expect, with a building of such prominence and with the buying at such a large asset, our ownership would also be viewed with interest over the following years, especially in the light of the financial turmoil and what's happened to the UK and London. Indeed, it was the same when the building was just completed, despite the economic buoyancy at the time. Remarketing at the time, Giles Barry, who was then the editor of Property Week, said, "Its iconic status was itself a problem. It's a great building, but it's completely identified with Swiss Re," he said. Other tenants would feel overwhelmed. Stephen Moss at The Guardian agreed. He stated, "The brand is simply too successful. It would be like subletting a basement of Buckingham Palace." From the outset, it was important to us that these risks were managed and that the building was carefully positioned. Accordingly, it was important that the building was not named the Swiss Re Tower or something similar, that the tenant signage is equally prominent for all tenants, and that the building's public profile was focused more towards what it stood for overall, which would reflect positively on all tenants, than simply Swiss Re's aspirations. And finally, that it would be referred to as 30 St. Mary Axe, or simply and informally as the Gherkin. By continuing to diversify its appeal and ensuring that potential tenants could feel at home and could obtain the advantages of the unparalleled intangibles of an iconic building, we've taken the building from an occupancy of when we bought it of just over 90% to right on 100% now. And during the time of our ownership, from 2006, we've increased the rent roll by 10%. This is in no small part due to the work we've done in protecting and growing the building's brand and positioning. What do I mean by this? Well, we live in an age of shards, cheese graters, and walkie-talkies, where our skyline is dominated by buildings not readily identified by the address at which they sit, but by their likeness to everyday objects. However, this hasn't always been the case. The Gherkin was the first of these buildings where a moniker was popularly adopted over the building's location or a corporately enforced brand name. Iconic buildings such as the Gherkin have now become, in effect, brands in their own right, and as building owner, we carefully manage and protect that brand. This includes both copyright and trademark protection, including the name the Gherkin itself, which we own, and which protects that name globally in relation to buildings. Whilst we wouldn't want to restrict the representation or imagery that celebrates the impact of the building on the skyline, we need to guard against inappropriate or unauthorized usage for commercial or other third-party purposes. Indeed, from the building's very inception, commentators in the business community alike have threatened inadvertently or advertently to compromise its image, which can have a very damaging effect on the building and its value and its appeal to occupiers. Our London Mayor, Boris Johnson, his recent reference to 20 Fenchurch Street as the lady shave doesn't provide a particularly positive impression. Early references to 30 St. Mary's Axe as the erotic Gherkin were also less than flattering. It was a nickname that commentators thought that it would be stuck with. Irvine, I know we don't want to leave you out here in terms of the colourful comments that Boris has made about the Shard. I think he referred to it graphically as only he can, as the tip of a cocktail stick emerging from a super colossal onion. Of the Gherkin, Selena Mills in the Guardian in 2002 said, "Whether they like it or not, it's going to be called the erotic Gherkin. Its backers have lost the battle to give one of the more remarkable recent feats of construction a more dignified name." However, over 10 years on, the building is rarely referred to with that salacious prefix, now known most popularly and simply as the Gherkin. I thought I'd share with you some images that, and we see hundreds and thousands of them, and you'll be aware of many of them, of people's use of the skyline and the Gherkin. Here's a shot here. I assume they're referencing the London skyline to show that they're actually located in the city. But when I see the Gherkin there, I'm not sure if they're referring to something else. This shot here, I was looking at it for some time before I realized that actually in the background, the familiar latticing of the Gherkin is present, and the shot was taken at the building. Whilst the popularity of nicknames and monikers for the building can ebb and flow with public sentiment, what is enduring is people's willingness to corporately hijack the use of the brand for their own gain. Just last year, in an effort to capitalize on the world's eyes being on London for the Olympic and Paralympic Games, London Zoo sought to promote its new Penguin Beach and issued a press release outlining its audacious plans to rebrand the building as the Penguin, accompanied by images of the building re-skimmed to appear as a massive Humboldt penguin. The news was widely picked up, and it created the impression that this would happen. And in fact, when you see this, and many people assumed that it actually had happened, all of this, I hasten to add, without our consent. By the time we learned about it, we advised them that we didn't think the concept would fly. While in a way it was a glowing endorsement of the power and reach of the brand, however, we must be careful not to let third parties, no matter how well intended, feel that they can exploit our intellectual property for their own gain. We have a duty to our co-investors and tenants to protect the building and its brand. The Olympics was a good opportunity for people to seek to cash in on it. The BBC in their home screen, and over there on the right at the closing ceremony at the top there, the Olympic Committee sought to use the building and asked us, and we licensed them to provide that outline and that cutout for the closing ceremony. Here we see the Olympic rings draped around the Gherkin as quoits, but the Gherkin being at the center. And finally, London 2012 in the far right corner. You might think that's the Olympic flame, but I'm pretty sure that it's our trademarked image of the Gherkin. Other uses, the Morgan car, distinctly British, being associated with the Gherkin. Legoland, where some of you may have taken your children. They've built a life-size model. On the back of the bus, a radio station uses it simply to reference London. You show the Gherkin, it's London, similarly to the biking ad there as well. And you see the Star Trek movie, where the building is shown in the future as being something enduring into the future, even though they show it there burning. The fact that the building is now synonymous with London also poses challenges, as organisations trying to demonstrate that they're British may be inclined to incorporate an image of it into their marketing. In some cases, and when done with our permission, this can be mutually beneficial to both parties. The UK Trade and Investment approached us to use the Gherkin in their current advertising to promote British exports. We also appreciate the importance of the brand and how we can use it to promote causes that we hold dear. The catastrophic Christchurch earthquake in New Zealand. In May 2011, we ran a stair climb at the Gherkin, where we had 1,000 people running up their 1,037 steps of the 180-metre tower to raise money for Christchurch and to show their support. Here we have a traditional New Zealand haka down at the bottom of the building, and the New Zealand Prime Minister, John Key, attending. As a New Zealander, it's something that I was very personally committed to and passionate about. We raised, in just that one day, £325,000, which shows the power of the building and of the worthy cause. After the Gherkin, the skyscraper was back. But it had to be sculptural. It had to be green. It was the starting gun that unleashed a wave of them across London. As Nigel Biggs said yesterday, it is commonly said that skyscrapers are conceived in a boom and delivered in a bust time. However, with the Gherkin, this wasn't the case. It was open and fully functioning some 3 years before the downturn in the property market in 2007. A show of the building against the skyline that may or may never be. Since the Gherkin was completed in 2004, we've seen a plethora of large buildings open in the city, from the Heron Tower to the Broadgate Tower, as well as the Shard. Add to this the aforementioned Cheese Grater and Walkie Talkie, which are both due to open next summer, and you can see just how strong the competition is and how we, as the Gherkin's owner, need to work to ensure its continued competitiveness. With upwards of 3 million square feet of space available once these buildings come online, maintaining a point of difference is important, either in terms of design, flexibility, access, or service. Looking forward, the challenge with maintaining an icon is to ensure that the offering to the tenants and their clients when using the building remains as strong and as compelling as the building's public perception and the brand. As landlords, we are duty-bound to deliver a building and a level of amenity and service that exceeds the day-to-day requirements of occupiers, because fundamentally, this is what underpins demand, the investment value of the asset and returns for ourselves and our co-investors. As the building reaches its 10-year anniversary, we're immensely proud, with our partners IVG, to have been part of its history to date, and we look forward to continuing to enhance the building's offering and its reputation, both in London and beyond. Thank you.